Hello and welcome to another episode of Damn Interesting Week. We are so glad you've decided to join us. My name is Jennifer Lee Noonan.
I'm Angela Epley.
I'm Bradley Calhoun.
And this was a damn interesting week. So let's get started with our first link.
First link.
Okay, from RFI. You know, it's been quite a year for museum heists. And this article is no exception because a French museum has filed a police complaint after a banana, which makes the centerpiece of Maurizio Cattelan's multi-million-dollar conceptual artwork Comedian, was stolen from an exhibition.
This is the thing with the banana duct taped to the wall, right?
That's exactly right.
Oh,
and if you haven't seen it, there is a very helpful photograph in the article, but it is literally just that, a banana with a single strip of duct tape on a white wall, and then above it is the name of the artist, Maurizio Cattelan, and then in big font, Comedian.
I thought you were going to say they have a picture of it after it was stolen, but it's just a wall. There's
It's just a peel on the ground that the guards are slipping on, right? Specifically, this occurred at the Pompidou Metz Museum, which is a branch of the Pompidou Center in Paris. They said the banana has since been replaced, which is actually in keeping with the artwork's unusual maintenance routine, because a banana indeed is a perishable fruit.
Right,
and
it's going to go bad.
Yes, and there is a protocol for it when it's on display. Namely, it's changed every 3 days to keep the work fresh.
I had always assumed it was plastic.
Nope,
but
it's a real banana. And it's part of the article is sort of implying it's in line with the artwork's playful challenge to the ideas of artistic value, because obviously the cost of banana is negligible.
Yeah, but also like reporting it to the police is basically a publicity stunt, because if it was tomorrow, you could just put up a new banana. Like, what does that mean it's been stolen?
Well, this is apparently also not the first time the banana has proved too tempting to leave untouched, because previously last year in July, a visitor to the Pompidou Metz ate the fruit while it was on display.
Wow.
Now, at that time, the guards intervened quickly, and thank goodness, a replacement banana was taped to the wall. And on that occasion, the museum chose not to take legal action.
Oh.
As for the artist himself, Cattelan responded with, quote, characteristic mischief, saying he was disappointed the hungry visitor had eaten only the banana and not the tape. But for this time, the museum has said it decided to file a criminal complaint because the perpetrator had not been identified, leaving, quote, no possibility of dialogue. Because if you're going to steal from an art museum, you know there's going to be a thesis to defend. Am I right?
Well, and, maybe if it's someone genuinely causing mischief, they're like, if he gets away with it once, he's going to steal it every day. So we got to figure out who this guy is.
Or maybe their eating of it was art in and of itself.
Yeah, maybe the artist stole it. That's what we're going to find out at the end of this.
Well, as you may imagine, Cattelan's Comedian has sparked debate, disbelief, and even fascination since its debut in 2019 at the Art Basel Miami Beach, where it was offered for sale with an asking price of $120,000. And it quickly became one of the most talked about pieces in contemporary art, in part because of its simplicity, and in part because of the questions it raises about authorship, money, performance, and the art market itself. And as for performance, well, its notoriety only grew when a performance artist named David Datuna ate the banana at the 2019 fair. In 2024, Chinese-born crypto entrepreneur Justin Sun, he paid $5.2 million for one iteration of the artwork. And then days later, he ate the banana in front of cameras in Hong Kong, turning the purchase into another performance around value, ownership, and spectacle.
We don't have a wealth stratification problem in this world.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the work's physical banana is replaceable, but the concept, certificate, and instructions behind it, this is what the collectors actually buy. And that distinction has made Comedian a striking example of how contemporary art can exist as an idea as much as an object.
Right, because I can duct tape a banana to my wall and they can't stop me, but I can't put a plaque up saying this is the piece by the guy.
Right. You haven't gotten Maurizio Catalan's official approval.
Right.
Now, if you don't know Catalan, he's long specialized in works that mix humor, provocation, and institutional critique. So besides Comedian, he's also known for an art piece called America, which is an 18-karat, fully functioning gold toilet, which, fun fact, was once offered to Donald Trump during his first term in the White House. And that work actually became the subject of a high-profile theft because in March, a British court found 2 men guilty of stealing the golden toilet during an exhibition in the UK in 2020. The toilet was later broken up. None of the gold was recovered. I'm sure it's circulating in the world in beautiful ways. But as for the Pompidou Mets, the latest disappearance of Catalan's banana, it's more than a prank. By going to the police, the museum has drawn a line between playful engagement with a famously mischievous artwork and the unauthorized removal of part of an exhibited piece.
And no cameras in that place, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they should have at least got something on video if they cared much.
Do you think when they have that exhibit for Comedian, like they have signs where it's like, you cannot bring bananas in here?
Yeah, like what if your performance was instead of destroying the banana, you went and taped a second banana next to it? Or you swapped bananas but nobody saw. You got like banana of Theseus going on at this point. And I mean...
I do like the idea of like a whole bunch of bananas being taped up and then daring them to be like, well, which one is the real one?
Right, exactly. It's like there was a movie where everybody dressed up the same and there was an art heist. I can't remember. Anyway.
It's the Three Amigos.
Sure.
The end of Three Amigos, they all dress the same.
Amazing. All right, next link. Next link.
All right, this comes from The Guardian. New York police investigate mysterious cases of people coming out of manholes.
Oh,
wait.
Like Ninja Turtles or people?
New York police are investigating a bizarre mystery involving groups of people emerging from the city's manholes in recent weeks.
Oh, dear.
To make sure there was not a threat to the public, the NYPD sent their highly trained emergency services unit into the sewer system to make sure nothing nefarious had been left behind by the individuals. Nothing was found.
Right.
Highly trained. I don't know why you got to throw that in there. That makes me feel like they're not.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're looking for bombs, so presumably you want them to know what a bomb looks like, but also they have to get into the sewer. Like, imagine the real bomb guy's like, no, that's not my job.
No, that's a very specific thing. Right?
Additionally compensated might be a better way of phrasing it.
There you go.
Yep. And the city's Environmental Protection Department, which manages the system, also went in and apparently found no damage to the sewer system equipment. A senior law enforcement official told NBC that one theory investigators are considering is that the men are, quote, scouring the system for valuables that get into the sewage. Police were first alerted to the unusual activity last Thursday about 11 p.m. A witness reported seeing 8 people remove a maintenance hole near McDonald Avenue and Collin Place in the Gravesend neighborhood of Brooklyn. According to the NYPD, the individuals were seen emerging from the maintenance hole roughly 3 hours later and thankfully changing clothes beside several parked cars.
Yeah, but that means somebody came out to their car in the morning and found sewage-covered clothing on the ground next to their driver door.
New York, just another Tuesday.
About 2 hours after the initial Gravesend report, police received another call about several people entering a maintenance hole near Hayward Street and Bedford Avenue in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Authorities said the group resurfaced more than 2.5 hours later before getting into a car and driving away.
Huh.
The incidents are reminiscent of similar episodes on the 5th of May when residents in Astoria, Queens reported seeing several people open a maintenance hole cover at about 2 a.m. near 20th Avenue and 36th Street. Witness Akai Jakupovic said, 3 random guys walking around in a strange suit, open the sewer and go in like Ninja Turtles. Sorry, I had to do that.
Yeah, well, and I'm also thinking, like, what if this is just a PR stunt for a new season of The Penguin? But if they're stretching it between now and May, it feels like a stretch.
And they're wearing waders and carrying flashlights.
Okay.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, I was looking at them. They were looking at me, you know. I could tell they were up to no good. They went in. They closed the cover like, you know, they would never hear, he added.
Yeah, listen, out-of-work New York actors will do a lot, but the waders indicate they're actually working down there.
Right, exactly. It remains unclear whether the incidents are connected. I'm sure they are.
Yeah, I mean, if they came out of the same hole, as soon as you saw someone go in, you could call the cops and be like, they're coming out of this same hole in a few hours. Just wait for them.
Right, or the cops are like, I don't know that I want to deal with a whole bunch of people getting out of that.
Right, the cops are like, look, have they killed anyone? No, not my business. Like, come on.
Right. I want to stick them in the back of my car.
Yeah.
Right. Next link.
Next link.
All right, well, before I tell you this next title, I've got a pop quiz for you.
Ooh.
Can you name all of the Marx brothers?
Harpo, Grouch,
Neppo.
Neppo.
No, that's not right.
So there were actually 5 of them. From oldest to youngest, they were Chico, Harpo, Groucho, Gummo, and Zeppo. And not everyone will be familiar with Gummo because he was the wrong age in 1918 and had to quit the troupe when he was drafted for the First World War.
Oh, no.
Was he already 80?
No.
No, he was 18 was the problem. The others were too old and Zeppo was too young.
Oh.
And that was actually the reason that Zeppo came in. He had no interest in being a performer, but their mother was insistent that they had to stay a foursome. So Zeppo joined for a bit, but then later quit, leaving Chico, Harpo, and Groucho as the main trio for the majority of their career.
Wait, they had a momager?
Yo, very much so. She was a performer, and she was like, you will be on vaudeville stage, dang it.
Ooh.
So I wasn't wrong completely with the Neppo.
No, not at all. It was Neppo. But it's this second oldest Marx brother that the article is about, because while Groucho was the cigar-chomping wit and Chico was the piano-playing rustic grifter, Harpo was the silent pantomime who let his harp and his taxi horn do the talking for him. And of course, Harpo wasn't completely silent in his personal life, but he was committed to the bit in front of audiences. He rarely spoke to fans, and he definitely never did it into a microphone, or so we thought. Because now, according to The Guardian, new recordings have just been unearthed of Harpo Marx's actual voice. So a little bit of background. He was born Adolf Marx in New York in 1888, but officially changed his name to Arthur sometime during his childhood. And it's not entirely clear why. There's a fairly persistent rumor on the internet that he did it to avoid association with the name of Adolf Hitler. But we know for sure that it had nothing to do with that because it happened decades before Hitler was anybody. Then in 1908, he started performing with his brothers under the stage name Harpo, which likely came from his self-taught musical skills. He experimented a bit with his character early on, but he never really got over his fear of speaking on stage. So by 1915, he officially reinvented himself as a silent performer in a tattered raincoat and a curly red wig. And he stayed silent for the rest of his career. In 1946, the producers of the Marx Brothers film A Night in Casablanca offered him a personal bonus of $50,000 if he would say a single word on camera, specifically the word murder. But he wouldn't do it. He told them, quote, I don't want to tear down a character that it took me decades to build.
Yeah, he would be murdering all the investment he made in a...
Exactly, yeah. I'm also like, I didn't do the inflation adjustment, but $50,000 in 1946 was a lot. But historian Robert Bader says that he did actually speak sometimes to live audiences. Quote, if he thought it was a great show or the mood struck him, he would come out and do this speech. It was officially known as Red's speech in reference to his red wig, and the lines had been written by the humorist Alexander Woollcott. And it was still kind of part of the bit, because what would happen is Harpo would step forward, unfurl this massive scroll, and suddenly let loose this torrent of words with like a ton of fancy vocabulary that Harpo himself never would have used. He also, much later in his career, would speak at charity events, sort of in character, but sort of as himself. And this was partly because he was supposed to be retired for health reasons, but he was always looking for a loophole to get back on stage. So he would insist that the charity events weren't really performing, as evidenced by the fact that he spoke at them. And the charities really liked it because they would specifically advertise that Harpo Marx was going to speak out loud, which meant more people would come and donate money. And it was at one of these events in 1964, raising money for the Riverside Symphony Orchestra in Southern California, that he was promised to narrate a new version of Peter and the Wolf that had been written by himself and Groucho. This time, however, for the first time, there was apparently a microphone, and someone pressed record, as Harpo first read Peter and the Wolf to a group of children, then gave a partly improvised read speech afterward that acknowledged his sons, one of whom had done the musical arrangement for the evening, and even touched on a little political humor, even though that wasn't really his thing. It was much more Groucho's thing. Unfortunately, what no one knew at the time was this would be the 75-year-old's last public appearance. 6 months later, he passed away, and the tapes from that evening were mislabeled and put in a box with an entirely different show. So they sat undiscovered for more than 60 years. But somebody has now found them, and they've put them on YouTube so you can hear it. Bader says, quote, longtime Marx Brothers fans are going to see a side of him that they just weren't aware of.
He's very racist. No,
Right. Fully milkshake duck. We're going to...
No.
Turns out he should have stayed silent.
Yeah. I mean, they talked a little bit about, like, the recording isn't good. They had to do a lot of work to restore it. And part of it was because he wasn't used to speaking into a microphone, so he puts his head off mic repeatedly. They had to, like, genuinely during the event, people had to keep going, we can't hear you. Get back on the mic. Like,
How funny.
but, you know, I was never a giant Marx Brothers fan. I mean, they're fine, I'm sure, but I've never been exposed to a lot of the Marx Brothers stuff.
Yeah, it was Three Stooges for us.
Yeah, see, I would like Buster Keaton. Like, it's all in that era, but yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like Teller, too, of Penn and Teller. Like, not on stage, he's not going to talk. But when it's an event or something, he talks.
Yeah, far
and
more
explains.
sustainable, right? The performance versus like the idea that this is how you are all of the time, or at least when the media is looking.
Yeah, exactly. Next link.
Next link. Okay, this comes from Damn Interesting's very own Alan Bellows about professional farters. Yes, professional farting. And specifically, we want to talk about one Joseph Pujol. He was born in Marseille, France in 1857. In his early youth, it became clear he was a natural entertainer. He would sing and dance and perform for his parents' house guests. He loved music. Over the years, he became handy with a trombone, which is actually quite handy because I've always referred to trombones as musical farts. But it was a different wind instrument that led to his eventual fame and fortune. You see, one day, young Joseph became alarmed when he was swimming in the sea. He took a deep breath before submerging, but as he inhaled, he felt icy cold water entering through his rear end. He immediately returned to shore and was astonished to see a great deal of seawater pouring from his backside. Now, a doctor assured him this was nothing to be concerned about, because doctors in 1857 in France, I guess. And it seems that Joseph took this advice to heart by exploring his strange new ability with a healthy curiosity. And he soon found that with a little abdominal control, he could deliberately suck water in through his anus and project it back out with impressive force, creating a spout of several meters. Now, that wasn't enough because further experimentation led him to discover he could also suck in large amounts of air. He was also able to use varying pressures to produce distinct notes, allowing him to reproduce simple tunes. And I have to say, I don't know if a modern equivalent exists because that's actually kind of impressive.
Yeah, that is impressive. At first, I was like, what's most impressive of how you make a career out of that? And then you said that, and I was like, well, never mind, actually.
Well, I mean, needless to say, he became very popular at school as a result. But little did he know that this unique talent would one day make him the most well-known and the most highly paid entertainer in all of France.
Well, France.
He later went to the army, where he amused his fellow soldiers with his lowbrow tricks, and they gave him the nickname Le Petoman, which translates roughly to fartiste. Amazing. And then when he left the service, he opened a bakery in Marseille, which was reputed to bake some of the finest bran muffins in the south of France.
Sure, you got to use your PR where you can get it. That's great advertising.
But he hadn't really been performing professionally at that time yet. He started a foray into show business when he started feeling restless. So at first, he resisted using his unique physiology in his stage comedy act. He instead went for the yokel with the trombone routine. But the fartiste within him could not be contained. So in 1887, at the ripe age of 30, Le Petoman first took the stage in Marseille. His first attempt was met with some skepticism, since petomanie, or fartistry, was, shall we say, something of a novelty for the French. But he quickly won the audience over and was an enormous success. He developed his act locally for about 5 years, then went on to Paris to try for the infamous Moulin Rouge.
Wow.
His introduction at the famous Vanity Theatre on his first night went something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to present a session of petomanie.
So sexy. So sexy.
Well, I mean, he knew that he was on, it was a big deal to get to the Moulin Rouge. He dressed finely in a red coat. He had black satin breeches.
You would have to have black pants just in case. Like that's important.
He looked very sophisticated as he explained to the audience that the emissions he was about to produce were completely odorless since he irrigated his colon daily. What a professional.
Oh.
The audience was completely unprepared for what lay ahead. He started off with a series of fart impressions, such as a new bride's timid toot, her noisy flapping emissions a week later, the solid booming fart of a miller, and a majestic 10-second-long helping of flatulence to wrap up his introduction. He did impressions of famous people. He played songs. He blew out candles. And that was just the first portion of the show.
I mean, it's nice that we have the Marxist voice on recording. This is what I want.
Right. You're like, why couldn't there have been a microphone then? That's what I want.
Now, at first, the audience was, shall we say, astonished at the bizarre spectacle, but when the first uncontrollable laughter erupted from the crowd, it quickly spread throughout the theater. And
you could say they were blown away. Sorry.
Soon, the men and women were completely paralyzed with laughter, tears streaming down their cheeks. A number of women actually passed out, unable to breathe in their tightly bound corsets, and had to be escorted from the theater by nurses. Now, the second part of his act, if that first part wasn't impressive enough, he stepped off stage and inserted a rubber tube into his orifice, which dangled out of a hole in the back of his trousers. He then used this tube to smoke 2 cigarettes at once, one from each end, and as a grand finale, he attached an ocarina to the end of the hose and played popular tunes while inviting the audience to sing along.
I mean, if you imagine somebody doing this today, they would absolutely have an audience.
I don't even want to look on YouTube, but I'm sure the competition is there, if perhaps not as impressive. But overnight, with this routine, Le Petoman was a huge success. He used his unique physiology to entertain in this way for years, eventually becoming the highest paid entertainer in all of France, maybe even the world. He parted ways with the Moulin Rouge in 1895 when the owner of the theater sued him for breach of contract after he fart serenaded a few people in public. But he was quickly replaced by a female bellows-powered fraud, La Femme Petoman.
Bellows-powered sounds awful.
Well, that's why I think the word fraud is in here, because it ain't natural, folks. Now, Joseph opened a theater of his own. He enjoyed many more years of success until 2 of his sons were disabled in World War I in 1914. And at that point, he gave up the stage. He went back to baking and let his rectum content itself with more conventional pursuits. He died aged 88 when a medical school in Paris requested the privilege of examining the late Le Petoman's famous anus. The family declined, stating, there are some things in this life which simply must be treated with reverence. Even though he was perhaps the most famous fartiste, he was not the first to ply the farting trade. In fact, professional flatulism has a long and rich history throughout the world. In the De Civitate Dei, which was written about halfway through the 1st century AD, none other than St. Augustine mentions some performers who possessed, quote, such command of their bowels that they can break wind continuously at will so as to produce the effect of singing. As other examples, medieval Ireland had professional farters. They were called bragatory. And even the Japanese Kamakura period from 1185 to 1333, they had professional performers of fart dances called oribe, which is hysterical in part because there's a luxury hair care brand called Oribe. Delightful.
I mean, this is clearly a genetic thing that some percentage of people can do. So I'm really curious why we don't have more people doing it today.
Well, you know, that medical school in Paris could have been the key to unlocking an entire lineage of entertainment that we only get in, shall we say, fits and spurts now.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I met a kid that could do that at camp.
Did you?
Yeah.
Fart camp?
Yeah. No, it was baseball camp. But yeah, he could. It was his party trick.
Instead of, hey, batter, he lets out a fart right when the batter's about to swing. And
Can you imagine how effective that would be as far as like, I can't help it, folks, except you can?
Yeah, he wasn't as skilled as this guy.
Well,
No
he needed
songs.
practice. He was a child.
That's
know.
right. He just didn't have, he lacked training. That's all. As far as any contemporary flatulist goes, perhaps the only representative of the trade today is one Mr. Methane. He clearly lacks the class of Le Petoman, but he can certainly break a wind.
I mean, that could be the kid you knew, Bradley. Like, have you looked him up online? It might be him.
Yeah.
Did you ever play baseball, go to baseball camp back in the 80s?
Yeah. Do you remember he was from Hollywood, Florida? So we called him Hollywood, which was about as far from what he was actually like.
Right.
But he was a Florida man, let's not forget.
That's right. You always got that to pull back on.
Next link?
Next
link.
Well, I have some decently good news.
Oh.
This is from the Associated Press. Independent bookstores are multiplying, although many people think they're dying out.
Yeah, I would have been in that category. That's great.
Yeah. Allison Hill, CEO of American Booksellers Association, is used to strangers expressing sympathy when they learn what she does for a living. It's also funny, she says, when I tell them I run the trade association for independent stores, they all say, it's just so sad they're all disappearing.
Oh.
The decline of physical bookstores remains so embedded in our popular culture that a man dating Anne Hathaway's character in The Devil Wears Prada 2 laments that bookstores are getting downsized and consolidated. But the decline actually ended years ago. And the latest numbers from the American Booksellers Association show independent stores expanding at a pace not seen this century.
Wow.
Membership in the ABA grew by more than 500 over the past year to a total of 3,417. The surge included stores of various kinds, general interest shops like Hey Books! Sorry, there was an exclamation part on
Right.
in San Diego. Mobile stores like the Wandering Quills Bookshop in Westerville, Ohio. Pop-up stores like Bain Books in St. Petersburg, Florida. So it's nice to hear they're kind of popping up all over the place. We have a ton here in Portland, so I assume they were all just in Portland.
Right. That's the locale.
In Wentzville, Missouri, 55-year-old Kelly Harnett is a marketing consultant and copywriter who has always wanted to run a bookstore. Her husband's concern included competition against Amazon, but Harnett went ahead and opened Double Dog Bookshop in 2025 as a mobile store. She rode around the area in a converted cargo trailer joined by 2 Australian cattle dog mutts, and has since opened a storefront downtown. So it expanded. People are craving connection, especially in-person connection. People are over the internet and virtual meetings and algorithms. I think also there's the physicality in it, too, that people are missing.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a cynical theory that it got a real big kick after the pandemic with the Zoom era. You've got people with bookshelves behind them and people who don't. And I feel like there's a little bit of a status thing of like, I own physical books and I can put them in the background behind me and look intellectual. So I think maybe that helped a little. I do think the community is part of it.
Book Talk is also a thing, yeah, like the community on Book Talk and people really wanting to talk about books with other people.
Yeah, well, and buying them in person as opposed to buying them on Amazon. Because you can still buy a bunch of physical books and have them delivered to you, but clearly people are looking for that in-person experience. And I have seen some bookshops that are like also a coffee shop.
And it's partially in what Hill talks about here is the concern is that the state of independent stores is healthy, but it's precarious.
Right. It could go at any second.
And independent owners also find themselves worrying about a one-time competitor, which itself had seemed endangered. Barnes & Noble.
Oh.
Yeah, they've lived. They really look like they weren't gonna for a while, but somehow they managed it.
Well, here's how. The superstore chain was a dominant seller in the 80s and 90s, but by the 2010s, Barnes & Noble had been surpassed by Amazon. It began shutting down its stores and struggled for years to find a new owner before hedge fund Elliott Management Corp bought it in 2019. Under the leadership of James Daunt, Barnes & Noble is expanding again, adding more than 100 stores over the past 2 years.
Wow.
In Chicago, the owner of the decade-old volume books has blamed a new Barnes & Noble for putting her out of business. Well, Hill added that even a small decrease in sales can make or break a bookstore's year in an industry with paper-thin margins.
Oh.
Her quote, not mine. Daunt denies any intent to take business from independent sellers, saying it's not in his, quote, DNA. Hey, I'm an independent seller myself, he said. He didn't put the hey in there.
Right.
Noting that he founded Daunt Books in London. Daunt says he has customers who shop at his store and the British chain Waterstones, where he's also managing director. Hey, man, you were an independent seller.
Yeah, you're not
You're
anymore.
now
because
corporate.
Yeah.
Like Starbucks was an independent coffee company. Like at one point, it's a silly thing to say.
Yeah.
The owners of the Book Loft Oak Park, another Chicago area store that opened last summer, acknowledged some nerves about a nearby Barnes & Noble coming soon. But Heather Nelson and Sophie Schuler hope the stores ultimately complement each other.
Well, the independent bookstores also tend to carry like niche stuff or older stuff. Like Barnes & Noble's sort of like the top 40 radio equivalent of books. Like they're only going to have the newest thing. They clear them out as soon as they need the shelf space for something newer. The independent bookstore might have a little element of curation where you can say, I'm looking for a book like this. And they go, I have a great choice for you. It was printed 20 years ago, but here it is.
And we have a few small ones here that are little diners and meant for slow reading while you eat here. And I thought that was pretty clever. I'm sure the waitresses are like, all right, get out.
Right. You can't sit here for 6 hours and need another tip.
I need tips. Yeah. So, in light of all the dark news, still some positive news.
Yeah.
Next link.
Next link.
All right. Well, we've covered events like this before, but it's happened again. From the BBC, how a virtual space battle lost gamers £400,000.
Oh.
So this time, the massive war between players was in a game called EVE Online, which is one of those open-world exploring building games where there is no set storyline, and a significant element of the gameplay is about forming real-world alliances with other players in order to control more territory. The game is slow and strategic and is often referred to by its players as a spreadsheet simulator because the people who take it seriously take it really seriously. And I can attest to this. My husband played EVE Online for a little while, and he did. He got the spreadsheets out. He was very obsessive about it and basically had to stop playing because he's like, this is a problem. I have to not be in this game anymore. In fact, the game's financial system is so complex that in 2025, a former economist from the Central Bank of Iceland was hired to oversee it.
Oh my God. Well, at least you can't say you're not like developing real world skills by engaging with this to some degree.
For sure. Yeah. It's nerds who play this game. It's not a shoot 'em up by any means. And while players are not officially allowed to convert in-game currency into real cash, they are allowed, perhaps controversially, to purchase in-game items directly from the developer rather than spending hundreds of hours in-game to build it themselves. As just one example, a Titan-class spaceship costs around £741 or nearly $1,000. But then again, with the right artillery and strategy, you can very quickly make that ship worth $0. Player James Cunningham estimates he's spent about £6,000 on the game since he started playing in 2017, while a, quote, high-earning friend claims to have spent closer to £30,000. He says he's logged into the game pretty much anytime he's not at work, including up to 16 hours a day on the weekends. And he's quoted extensively in this article because over the course of several years, he rose through the ranks to become the fleet commander of one of the game's largest alliances, known as the Pandemic Horde, where he was personally responsible for directing thousands of players' actions during battle. Like, it's real project management and military strategy. Now, this current conflict didn't arise overnight. Back in 2020, a few different rival factions clashed with one another in a situation that seems to have been caused by a personal vendetta between the factions' leaders. At one point, players fought continuously for 14 hours straight in what became known as the Massacre at M2XFE. More than 280,000 pounds worth of in-game assets were destroyed in that battle.
Oof.
And at the time, it was entered into the Guinness Book of World Records as the most costly video game battle ever. Obviously, we know from the headline that title has now been lost, because in the aftermath of the 2020 massacre, the various factions settled into a kind of Cold War of rebuilding and plotting revenge. And in June of 2025, Cunningham noticed a group called the Imperium, which was the pandemic horde's longtime enemy, advancing on their home system. And just like a real battle across real distances, everyone could see in advance what was about to happen, because the Imperium was transporting around $6.7 million worth of military assets toward this foreign territory. Developers called it the most ambitious move in EVE Online's history, and Cunningham knew he had to take it seriously. So the leadership team laid out a strategy. Players called in sick to their real-world jobs. Cunningham adjusted his sleep schedule so they could coordinate across time zones worldwide. And in the end, they lost. About 50,000 pounds worth of assets were destroyed before the pandemic horde was forced to retreat from their stronghold. But the War of Ruses, as it became known, was only the beginning. Because in the aftermath of this relatively significant defeat, the player who had been leading the pandemic horde for more than 10 years announced that he was quitting the game entirely and that the Alliance would be heading off in a new, unexplored part of the map, which is basically infinite, so that the new leaders of the Alliance could get their footing and establish a fresh start. And I guess maybe they thought that people would just sort of respect that and let them leave with their tails between their legs. But what happened instead was every single rival group pounced on them all at once, battering them constantly for days on end until the group was completely obliterated and its players disbanded.
Wow.
Now, estimates on the damage do vary wildly. One EVE Online superfan contacted the BBC and shared a complex spreadsheet that totaled around 700,000 pounds worth of lost assets. But the developer, Fenris Creations, said they think the number is closer to 400,000 pounds, though they stressed that this is not an official figure. As for Cunningham, he personally managed to escape with most of his big-ticket items intact, and believes he only lost around 200 pounds, though he has, of course, lost his online home and military position. And just in case you think this is turning anyone away, this battle happened in June of 2025, and Fenris Creations says that November and December of 2025 were the most profitable months in the game's 23-year history.
Oh my God, people learn.
Kind of. Like, timeline-wise, it sounds to me like everyone spent a few months digging in and trying to rebuild on their own, and then got frustrated and said, I'm just going to buy it. Which I think it's maybe not great that the developer has such a strong incentive to instigate fights.
Yeah, and for me, the pay to play and you lose that asset.
Right.
At least with Star Citizen, you don't lose it, right? People pay $1,000 for a ship. It'll explode, but then you get it back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you lose things permanently in EVE Online, for sure.
Oh,
and you got to imagine, they've got moles in every one of those alliances going like, hey, are you going to let him say that to you? Like, absolutely ramping up, because a battle makes them money.
Yeah.
If you destroy your ship, you have to get another one. And at the very least, you're paying your monthly subscription to build it yourself, or you're just handing over your cash to get a new ship.
Well, this explains why EVE Online is still in use. Yes, because
23 years. It's still a very, very popular game. And just fundamentally, it is addictive. Like I said, my husband had to stop, make the decision to quit because it was taking up far too much energy from his real job that paid him money as opposed to the other way around. But
yeah, I love space video games, and I fortunately hate spreadsheets, so that game.
So you're protected. That's good.
I was protected from that game.
Right.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, that is all we have time for today. We're so glad you've joined us. Some of the articles we did not have time to get to today include The Richest Cat in the World, The Dirt That Refused to Die, and The Unsolved Mystery of Lorem Ipsum. So all that and more, plus everything we talked about today, can be found on damninteresting.com. If you like our podcast and want to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/damninterestingweek. In the meantime, my name is Jennifer Lee Noonan.
I'm Angela Epley.
I'm Bradley Calhoun.
And we hope you have a damn interesting week. Bye-bye.